Welcome, Cindy. This is Cindy McCall we have on today.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
Yes. So Cindy McCall is a provider, a craniosacral provider located in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, who specializes in the concept of whole being healing. She is a certified biodynamic craniosacral and MAP method therapist. She also has further accreditation in Reiki reflexology, meditation, massage, and aromatherapy. She can hold all aspects of body, mind, and spirit in your healing journey. She is a provider who will listen with compassion and empower you on your journey to a deeper mind, body, and spirit connection. Did I miss anything?
No, that's a lot.
You do a lot.
I do a lot.
You've been in this field for a long time.
17 years.
17 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you get into this field?
Well, I was in the corporate world. I was a single mom, and I had a cottage industry for a while. Let me start back. I was military, married a military pilot, kept moving all over. So I had a little cottage industry at home. I did custom knitwear, and I have some knitting machines, and I did that so I could be with the kids and live all over the world. We divorced. We were living in Puerto Rico, and I needed a job. So I went into the hospitality industry, went into sales, hotel sales, eventually ended up being the director of sales of the Ritz-Carlton in St. Thomas.
Of course you did.
But in the meantime, about 3 years before that, I just wanted to do something else. I did that job for the money, and I'll admit it. I did it for the money to give my kids what they needed to get them through school, all of that, and I was good at sales, I found out. So, but I used to just think about, I don't know, it was a natural inclination to help people or want to help people. I was looking at going back to school. I was looking at physical therapy, massage therapy. I was looking at all these things and didn't know what to do and really didn't know a lot about it. And I was in the spa at the resort where I was working, and I had this synchronistic event happen with a reflexologist.
Okay.
And a lot of things happened. She got an emergency phone call. It was a pedicure appointment. She had to get up and leave. And the girl that came in from the spa to take over was the foot massage part. And she said, "Oh, what's wrong with your left eye?" And I'm thinking, how do you know that? And she said, "I feel it right here on your foot." Well, I'm blind in my left eye.
Wow.
And you can't tell that by looking at me.
Not at all. Not
right.
at all.
So I was like, wow, what is this about? And we finished the whole thing and had a little chat. And I went home and immediately looked it up. And I said, that's what I'm going to do. That's where I'm going to start.
Yes.
And it just went from there. So studied reflexology first. It took me 3 years after that to be brave enough to leave my paycheck behind and open a practice. Started doing reflexology on the beach in St. Thomas.
Yeah, just I imagine an umbrella, a beach
exactly,
chair.
A beach chair, an umbrella, a little sandstone sign that said reflexology on it, like with shells. And I was in heaven. It was like it opened up the door to everything else. I started studying Reiki. Then after Reiki, craniosacral therapy. Then all the things start adding in. I will say I don't do massage anymore. I haven't done massage for about 3 years because I'm really focused on the deeper healing modalities that I do, and it was killing my hands.
Yes.
But anyway, that's how it started.
Wow.
It was like the universe went, here you go, look at this.
Yes. What allowed you to say, yes, I will look at this?
Yeah, it was just recognizing the synchronicity of what happened, of the one getting an emergency call and leaving, the girl that come in happened to be a reflexologist, and then just that inner gut feeling, that knowing that sort of that it was a truth that rang in me, like, yes, this is what I'm going to do. And I went to school while I was still working at the hotel and traveling back and forth to the States to do the classes.
How did you juggle all that?
I don't know.
As a single mom?
I was young then. I don't know.
you had more energy.
And my kids were teenagers by that point, so it was easier. But it just, sometimes things come along in life and it just rings true to you, or it just touches your soul, or there's something about it that is resonant. Maybe that's the word I should use. It was resonant to me, and I just went with it.
Yeah. It's that passion, like a calling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It hit something. And, I had been looking, but I didn't know reflexology. I'd never heard of it before.
Yeah. I keep thinking about how did you go from reflexology to craniosacral? That's a huge.
So I had quit my job and was practicing reflexology and Reiki. I had studied Reiki at the same time. And one of my friends on the island, who was a yoga instructor and a shiatsu practitioner, went and took a couple of craniosacral classes. And she came back and she said, "This is your work."
Wow.
Like, because she knows how I work just with Reiki and reflexology. And she's like, "This is your work." And she gave me a session. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Yeah.
And so I went to school for that.
Okay. So you just kept really following the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then an osteopath, a biodynamic cranial osteopath, came down to the islands. And I won't go into, to save time, all the synchronistic events around that, but my business card was on somebody's sailboat that they went on, and he saw it, and then someone said I had to meet him, and it was all these things that I pay attention to when that happens.
Yeah.
And I went and met with him, and I said, "I don't know why I'm here. I don't really need a session from you." And he said, "Well, let's do a session." And he didn't really know what I did because it was someone else that referred me. And he put his hands on me and he said, this is how you're wired. This is your work. You'll have an understanding of this. You'll pick up the information. And I was like, wow. And I had already started cranial, the Upledger model, the more mechanical model. He was a biodynamic osteopath, and I was looking at biodynamic craniosacral therapy, and then here he is. And he worked with me for a while. He would come to the island, and we would work on my clients, and I would basically be apprenticing with him.
Wow.
And I learned a ton. And then Franklin Sills decided to teach his 2-year biodynamic cranial course in the States because he was in England, and I couldn't figure out how to get to England all the time. And he did it in New York. And
Nice.
I did the 2 years with him and certified as a biodynamic craniosacral therapist, which is how I still practice today.
Okay. So for those people who don't know what craniosacral is, and we're talking about the different types.
Yes.
Yes.
Craniosacral therapy is a really gentle, hands-on modality. It's not massage. You stay clothed. It's a whole body healing modality, although we are listening to, there's a potency that's generated by the wave of cerebral spinal fluid. So in that system, the cranium to the sacrum, the cerebral spinal fluid creates like a wave instead of a pulse. And that wave has a potency, and you can palpate it throughout all the tissues of the body.
Wow.
It especially addresses the nervous system. I can work with, head injuries, sutural restrictions, the musculoskeletal system, the bony structure. But at the same time, we've got, in this 2-year training, really honing your perceptual skills to feel into the nervous system and to feel into where the body isn't as open or clear or as functioning as it should be. We're looking for something we call a fulcrum or a strain pattern, somewhere the body is holding, and that holding in the tissue or in the nervous system periphery is either a physical trauma that happened or an emotional trauma or a toxin or a surgery, whatever it was that was traumatic to the body at that time that it couldn't process through. And we all have hundreds of these fulcrums. They're called, an osteopath will call it a fulcrum or a strain pattern. And the body's very adept at working around all of the things we meet in life, right? True health is always there on some level, no matter what's going on. And it's really holding that person's nervous system in the place of true health so that their body and system can resource its own healing. And we just trust that inherent intelligence that organizes life to bring forward what needs to happen that day, because I don't know the order you need to heal in.
Yeah.
With my logical mind, you can come in and tell me all your symptoms and I could make a decision, but it's way better if I hold your system and use the perceptual awareness and let the body show me what we need to do first.
So it really requires trust.
Yes.
Like trusting your own system, trusting you as a provider to find those stuck places for your body to show what is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
And it's really about learning as a practitioner to be in a really neutral space. You know, no agenda, no fixing, no judging, especially no judging. Just hold that person for that beautiful being that they are, right? We're a vibrating massive energy. That's all we are. And holding that for that person, it gives me chills, that space for that person, and really allowing that system to settle into the parasympathetic, into, you know, the brain waves. They've done EEGs during cranial work, and they find the brain waves go into alpha and even theta, which is meditative state, right? A deeply relaxed state. And then, you know, that intelligence we have to heal and balance and look for homeostasis comes forward, and the whole session unfolds in a way that's best for that person in that moment.
Do you feel like someone has to be ready to heal in those ways?
No.
Or do you encounter people who come and sit on your table and they're still feeling a little resistant, nervous? Like, what do you do with that?
Definitely. Well, I talk to them about what's going on. A lot of times I'm people's last resort. It's sort of the missing
I feel like
piece.
you should be the first resort.
I know, but it's not everybody knows, especially doctors.
What?
You know, they've been through the business is all on referrals. You know, people refer. I don't really advertise. I have a website, but I'm not real active on it. They're a referral, and they'll come in and say, you know, I don't really know what you do, but so-and-so said you fixed their whatever, their neck or their hip or their, you know, the emotion, their depression, their anxiety, whatever it was. And you try to explain it. I'm a practitioner, and it's hard to explain.
Yes.
In sort of a black and white manner, or so I think there's some trust there because they're usually referrals, number one. And then I just talk to them and try to meet them where they are, where their knowledge is or where their beliefs are, and address them in a way that maybe that's comfortable for them, that maybe isn't so scary or threatening. And just explain to them, you know what we're going to do. You're going to lay on the table here. You're going to stay clothed. I'm going to put my hands on your feet to start with. I'm going to just listen. So, you know, or everyone, I had a lady come in one time in St. Thomas. Someone had referred her. She was a nurse, and she was really wired tight.
Yeah.
We'll say that.
I bet.
And she literally came in with this attitude and said, "You're not going to relax me. Nothing relaxes me." And she got on the table, and I was like,
no.
wow.
Oh, no. The worst.
And then, you know, I have to center around that. Like, okay, all right, that's okay. I said, let's just see what happens.
Yes.
And man, she went out. And we got done, and she's like, I don't know what happened. I've never been that relaxed in my whole life. And I was thinking, yeah, you really need it. But, and then you have, if someone comes into with something really specific, like I had a lady come in one time who broke her arm. And I can work through a cast, believe it or not. And she was in a lot of pain and just wanted some help with that. And I see her mother as a client, and so she knew me from me working with her mom. And I was listening at her feet. And even though I was going to address her arm and she was there for her arm, the thing that came up was something down in this lower left abdominal quadrant. I wasn't quite sure what it was, whether it was like, you know, the descending colon or an ovary or whatever, but something was there getting my attention. You know, so I was perceiving that was where, you know, the stuck place was, or the fulcrum, or something that needed help. And so I said to her, you know, I'm going to work on your arm, but what's going on here? And I went and just laid my hand on it. I could feel viscerally something, either an adhesion or something was going on in there. And she just said, oh, I had surgery, and they perforated my colon on that side. And they did something else, and they had to go back in and do surgery again and fix it. Wow. But so the body was saying to me, I need you here. right? So that's what I mean about being perceptive. So I tell people, even though you're coming in for the thing you came in for, this is a whole system, whole being healing that's happening. And we're going to pay attention to the order the body knows to heal in. So I might not go exactly where you want me to go to begin with, or where you think I might go, but just trust that, you know, what's coming forward is what your system needs in this moment today. And maybe this piece needs to heal before this piece can heal, and then the next piece can heal, and every session builds on the session before.
Yeah, it's like when people come into therapy and they're like, I want to work on my trauma with my mom, and then we are way back into childhood and uncovering things that they never even wanted to touch ever again. And it's trusting yourself in that process, and trusting really the idea of non-lineation. Like X plus Y doesn't always equal what you think it's going to, but it all has power and it all has meaning, and it's all equally important.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I like that. I might use that.
Feel free.
Yeah.
So what I'm really hearing is this theme in you, Cindy, this ability to stay curious and to listen. How does your own story come into play? Like, how are those your gifts?
I just think it's how I'm wired. I've kind of been that way my whole life. I never really kind of fit into any group. Even as a kid growing up, I used to bring home wounded birds and animals and put my hands on them and didn't have a clue what I was doing. I have the ability to see energy, and I didn't know until in my 30s really what that was about. I never had someone in my life or a time in my life that I could, that someone could help me know what this all was about. I'm very sensitive, very empathic. I feel everything, which is a blessing and a curse. When I was in my mid-30s, I was living in Puerto Rico, and I actually met a shaman in the rainforest.
Okay.
There you go, another event.
Yes.
And he said, you know, his guides, whatever you believe in, were saying that I needed to look at energy. I needed to do energy work. I didn't have a clue what energy work was, or Reiki or anything else. And then another person that was a friend of mine gave me Barbara Brennan's book called Hands of Light. She was a NASA scientist.
Wow.
And started understanding the quantum field and quantum physics and energy and what we're made of and all that. And her book is called Hands of Light. And it gave me that book, another synchronistic thing. And that book gave me, my whole world made sense after I read that book.
Wow.
And that's probably what really started me on the journey of looking at, you know, my next career being in the healing arts. I just didn't know what it was going to be. And then the reflexology thing happened, and I started there. So I think it's just the way I'm wired. Like some people, everyone can cook, but there are some people that are naturally really good cooks.
Yes.
And other people that have to have the recipe book and, you know, follow every single little step. And I'm just more naturally inclined with that perceptive awareness, I think.
How has that shown up in your personal life? Like, how do you go from working in other people's nervous systems to being at home? Like, it's hard to turn off.
It's having a foot in two different worlds, for sure. I have I've really been taught over the years, like I've been in private practice 17 years, but this really started over 20 years ago. And I've really had some amazing teachers. I've been very blessed for the teachers that I've had. And I have a solid meditation practice myself, and really practice, again, that space of being neutral, really being in that neutral space. And, you know, I think I'm normal. I think I live a normal life. My boyfriend would say there's nothing normal about me, but, you know, I do have a foot in both worlds, but I really think I have learned to balance that. And when I step out of my practice and out of my office and come back into home and cooking and friends and going out and whatever real life is, I can be fully present in that. But when I step into my office and step into a practice, or I'm doing a Zoom call with somebody for a map session or something, then I step into that whole different space. I take a minute before I get to my office, 30 minutes before I start the day, and just really settle into that neutral space, sort of shift gears, if you will, and just come into a different presence.
Yeah.
But it is hard sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious for people like me who struggle in just slowing down and being in that quiet space. Like, for you, when you say you've developed this meditation practice, I think commonly when we think of meditation, we think of a blank brain and a calm body. Has that been your experience? What would you tell someone who's wanting to maybe begin developing some of these practices, rituals that could help their nervous system?
Yeah, that's a myth. We can never empty our brain.
Thank you. Thank you.
I tell people, have it be like throw it a bone, like a dog. Give it something to chase.
I love that.
Right?
Yes.
Throw it a bone. Like, I'm able to just be quiet now, but I've been at this for years. But I remember in the beginning, and even some days I still have monkey mind. It's running all over the place, and I just witness it. And the whole act of just the intention of sitting, there's no good or bad meditation. There just is. And if you just sit for whatever you can do to start with, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, it's not like you have to sit for an hour, and you're not going to empty your mind.
Yeah.
So you can start off. I tell people, if you're starting, give it something to do. Do a guided meditation. So you're listening to somebody guiding you, or stare at a candle, or recite a mantra, or have some kind of music on or whatever. But just the intention of sitting and giving yourself that stillness and that time is enough.
Yeah.
But it's a muscle you have to exercise for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think even knowing where to begin for some people can be hard. So sometimes I even take away that sitting piece of just go outside and witness what you see. Like, what colors are you seeing? What noises are you hearing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or a walking meditation.
Yes.
Go for a walk. And like you said, notice what you notice. And just, it's almost like a single focus instead of, we're so scattered nowadays.
Yes. Everything is coming in so quickly. Our brains can't even hold it all.
Exactly. And we're so overstimulated and, phones and computers and everything going all the time. I personally go out in nature almost every day if I can. I have to have a good self-care routine to do the work that I do.
Yes.
I have to.
Yeah.
So meditation every morning, at least 30 minutes. And then exercise. I do have a pretty good workout routine almost every day. Race walk, get outside when I can and hike, but I do strength training and yoga and, all kinds of things to keep myself clear and fit. And I eat well. And
the word release comes up. You're constantly kind of releasing and leaning into the things that feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's hard. It's a hard practice to have consistency in. And so I hear, to be able to sit down and do 30 minutes of meditation, that is a very strong muscle.
Yeah.
You've worked really hard
but
at
then
that.
think about it. I'm in meditation all day, basically.
Yes.
When I'm sitting there with another person and I'm holding them, their physical body, their energetic field, I'm holding this neutral space so that they can heal themselves. I'm like the conductor of the orchestra, right? Or the facilitator, if you will. But to be able, if their system will entrain to me, so if I am in that neutral space and can hold them there, their system will eventually drop into that space, into that parasympathetic space. Their brain waves will slow down. And when the brain waves slow down, now a coherent signal is being sent to the nervous system, right? And you've got that heart-brain coherence going on, and they drop into this sleepy, not sleepy, dreaming, not dreaming, coherent brainwave state. And then their body's like, whoa, you're out of the way. I can do all these things now. And I just gently facilitate what the body needs to do. Right?
Yeah.
So somebody comes in with a concussion or a traumatic brain injury or something, there's probably going to be structural restrictions in there. I still never force anything to happen, ever. If I hold that in the way that it's showing up, the body will adjust itself. People's backs will adjust. Their necks will crack while they're laying on the table, and I'm not forcing that to happen.
Yeah. It's almost this idea of co-regulation.
I like that.
And when the baby soothes, right, then the need can be met.
Yeah.
And it can cry or tantrum or go to sleep. Like whatever needs to happen is going to happen. But first, that attachment and that co-regulation has to happen.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I imagine your calm nervous system really impacts their nervous system.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. They will sort of entrain to me. I can't force it to happen. And a natural still point will happen. But again, it's of me meeting that person exactly where they are and not having my own agenda.
And that's so rare. That's so rare. I think even as a therapist, often people will come in and they'll be like, what's your agenda? Like, what are you doing? And sometimes I have a bit of an agenda because you have to kind of know where it's going to go a little bit for prediction and safety and containment. But to be able just to sit in a space and let whatever happens happen is so healing. And I imagine such a relief from just the day-to-day expectation or pressure that someone experiences.
I think so. Yeah, and people tell me after they've come in consistently for a little bit that then out in the real world or at home, whatever, they're like, oh, I find myself calmer, or I can drop into a meditation now, or I find that I don't get as angry, or things like that. I have spouses, say I work with, I see some couples, not as couple therapy, but one will come in and then say, oh, then the other one needs to come in, or he's got this pain, or she's got that pain, or whatever.
I've been trying to get my husband into
Yes, see? That's a lot. It's mostly women sending their husbands in. But what I hear, and of course, ethics and our HIPAA laws and all that, I can never repeat. They're both totally confidential sessions. When I work with a lot of families, kids, parents, grandparents, but couples, and it's interesting because then one will come in and say, wow, the other one's now so much calmer or happier or not as triggered, or the nervous system can regulate better. We can take people out of that parasympathetic go, think, alert mode, and drop them into that parasympathetic long enough and enough times that the body's like, oh, I know this. I can go here.
Yeah. What was that like for you in your journey? Like, do you feel like when you talk about starting in sales and marketing, like I imagine this hypervigilance and
definitely
like hypervigilance, pressure, a whole different nervous system. What has that journey of healing your own nervous system, calming your own nervous system been like?
It's been a journey. I used to be pretty wound up, and really, I was really kind of controlling. And to go back and look at that now, to look back on my life now and see how different I am nowadays than I was back then. Yeah. I don't say I'm completely different, but definitely a lot of that went away. What was that like? Coming out of that, again, I think this work in this state is more my natural state. To do the other work and be in sales and be aggressive and, push to make your numbers every month and all of that was out of my comfort and out of my wheelhouse. There was a reason I did it, and I was really driven to provide for my kids. And I never liked that job. I just did it for the money.
Yeah. And you were naturally good at it.
I was naturally good at it because I'm a people person. Yes. So people felt it's interesting. Clients would say to me, "Wow, you're a tough negotiator, but you're really fair." Or they trusted me. And people do business with people they trust. I wasn't going to be like the used car salesman. No offense to any of those used cars out there. We're that stereotype that we have, and not, give them the best possible experience. I did group sales, so groups, incentive trips, things like that, of big groups of people coming in for their reward trips or whatever. I had the pharmaceutical industry. It was my industry for a while, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah. You're kind of undoing all of that now in the work you do.
But, I was always really honest.
Huh.
And I never was going to basically sell them something that we couldn't perform or provide. And I think there was a trust there just naturally. I think I'm just naturally good with people.
How does that make sense? Like when you think about your story, like you're a people person, you needed the control, but you stayed in your trust, you stayed in your honesty, in your integrity.
Yeah, my mom says I couldn't lie to save my life. That's so true. I just feel it in my body. Again, that visceral feeling, I can't stand it, right? But as a kid, we moved a ton. My dad has his own issues, and he couldn't be still. And we moved, oh my gosh, well, to date, I'm going to move again. And this is I've moved 33 times in my life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And as a kid, from like kindergarten through being a senior in high school, we moved 13 times.
Wow.
Yeah. So you're talking about really having to be, for me, starting all over every time, new school, new friends. And when you're a kid, that's tough.
Yes.
Yeah, elementary school, especially junior high, things like that. And we moved so much. So I think I kind of learned to be really self-sufficient, kind of. I don't know how else to say that.
Yeah.
Really.
Very hyper-independent.
Yeah, independent for sure. And I think in looking back on it, it gave me a lot of strength. As I think it had to.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that crushes a kid just to have to move one time.
Yeah.
Never less 13 times.
Yeah.
And no wonder that people pleasing is in there and that control piece is in there, because so much was out of your control.
Exactly.
I imagine.
And so you try to control your environment and control what you can control.
Yes. Yes.
And so and the strength, stubbornness for sure. All these things that I kind of had to grow up fast.
Yes. Yeah.
And my family life is what it was. And my dad was always on the road. He was a truck driver. And, my mom worked full time, and we did all these moves. And, I think I had a great childhood. To me, looking back on it, I realized it was kind of dysfunctional. But, at that time, I was just a happy kid. I just always was able to cope.
That's incredible.
Somehow.
To be able to say, like, I coped through it all. I survived it all. I thrived. Yeah. Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. So, leaning into calm, quiet.
Yeah.
How did you know you were ready? Like, these things kept popping up. You felt led, felt like a passion, but that idea of betting on yourself, dropping that last paycheck.
Yeah, that was scary. There's a saying, it's not my saying, but it's the saying that I use a lot. Leap and the net will appear. And I'm a leaper, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
My girls are like, Mom, what are you doing now? Leap and the net will appear. It's a benevolent universe that has our back. And I know and maybe I'm only just now connecting these dots with you, Heather, that maybe from my childhood, I know that I will always be okay.
Yes. Yes. That is apparent.
I know that. And I'll do whatever I'm going to do. And if it's not, I'll just make another decision.
Pivot. That's my tagline. Pivot. Just pivot.
I like that.
Yes.
Yeah. I just know that I will always be okay.
What does that feel like in your body, like as you say that out loud?
So it's making me, and you can see me now, I'm smiling and almost laughing because it feels good. Like I try to tell other people too, look, the universe and source and God and whatever it is you believe in is not out to get you. Right? It's there to support you.
Yes.
And it's a supportive, benevolent, loving energy that's out there. And I just trust that I'll always be taken care of. I never question that.
Wow.
Isn't that weird?
I mean, it's powerful. I don't know that many can say that they've always been able to trust that.
Yeah, I just don't question it.
That must be your wiring.
It's I don't know. I'm not a worrier.
Huh. That's incredible.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know how to tell you that came about. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just not. I pivot. I like your word, pivot. I'll just pivot.
Yeah. Yeah. You acclimate, right? And I get that. Even in my story of survival versus thrive, it's always, I even was telling, Brandon this morning, like, my bad luck comes in sevens, and shit. Of course, the minute I walk into this room, the Zoom stops working, like that's, you just got to figure it out and do something different and pivot, but it's going to happen if you want it to happen. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And to what you're saying around allowing the body system to heal, I believe that if you are ready to heal, you're going to heal. And if your body is ready to heal, it's going to heal. And so you as a practitioner creating that amazing space, that very safe container for people to go where they need to go in order to heal is incredible.
Yeah, it's a safe space. Some people, I had somebody yesterday who came in, is in a big life transition right now, and just started crying, and that's fine with me. Here's the tissues. It's a safe space for you. And she said, I haven't cried yet about all of this. I'm like, well, this is the perfect place.
Yes.
Have at it.
Yes.
I'm just going to hold you.
Yes.
And, it's a place that they can sort of let things process through. Right?
Yeah.
And I can just hold space for them to do that, and for their system to do that, and for their system to be able to do it in a way that isn't re-traumatizing.
Yes. Yeah. 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 And I think, too, what you do is so non-intrusive. There's so much extra safety in just being able to be there and lay there. Like, no one needs anything from you.
Right.
I think even in therapeutic spaces, sometimes it's like, well, I have to show up. I have to talk about the thing. I have to go to the place I don't want to go. And so there's a lot of safety in what you're describing as far as just being able to show up and trusting your body is going to go where it needs to go.
Right. And that's part of it, is creating a safe space for people. And, by just being in neutral and being in a very non-judgmental space and not having an agenda, it allows them to it allows their system to settle in.
What would you say to practitioners who are still trying to figure out who they are in their practice? Like, and maybe even they carry a sense of pressure or self-judgment, self-shame in how they show up.
Like, I don't know, like imposter syndrome, sort of. I think we all have that. I have that at times.
Yeah.
Sometimes I go to my office and I think, what the hell do I even know anyway? Like, who am I?
Yes.
Right? To be holding these people.
Yes.
What do I even know? Yeah, that comes up sometimes for me still. I don't know, Heather, how to answer that question, honestly.
How do you hold yourself when you go into those spaces?
I think I hold myself, again, this has been such a practice for me to be in this neutral, non-judgmental space, even about myself, even though that little imposter syndrome pops up now and again.
Normal.
Or you get a little first session nerves sometimes, depending on what somebody's coming in with. Like, I hope I can hold them properly. How's this going to go? Yeah. I don't know. I just trust. And I think through the years, again, I've had some amazing teachers that really have helped me be able to hold myself in a different way, in a different space, in a non-judgmental space. And knowing that the other thing is, I don't know if this is going to answer the question or not, but one of the biggest teachings in the biodynamic cranial world and some of the other teachings that I've had is that there's always a divine intelligence at work. So when someone comes in to see me or you or wherever they go, you know, your higher selves already probably have negotiated what's going to happen outside of our conscious mind, right? And it's trusting, because I remember thinking back when I don't really know that I've really experienced shame for myself, but questioning my abilities for sure, especially in the beginning. And I remember saying to Franklin Sills one time, who was my biodynamic teacher for 2 years, he's amazing. He doesn't teach anymore because I think he was in the 70s when I learned from him. But what if I miss something?
Yes.
What if I don't feel something? What if I don't perceive it? What if I miss it? What if, you know, I know that what I do can't cause any harm because we're never forcing anything to happen. But he said, there's always a divine intelligence at work. And I'd be like, yeah, but. And then he would just repeat it. There's always a divine intelligence at work. And sometimes if I get in my head a little bit and get in that space of, oh, I don't know what to do with this person or what's happening, or, you know, I'm not seeing what they're coming in with, what they are in their logical mind coming in with. I hear that phrase and I'm like, there's always a divine intelligence at work. It takes the responsibility off me, kind of.
Yes.
Right? And then being in neutral again. But there is always a divine intelligence at work.
Yeah.
And the session will be what it's going to be.
Yes.
And for me to learn to let go of what I think it should be.
Yeah. Well, that's really empowering the client to show up and to do the work
Totally.
that they need to do. And you're just this holding space.
Totally.
And I think as providers, it can be hard. We do hold such a responsibility at times of like, I have to make this work. I have to fix it. And none of that is true or relevant or important. That's our own ego.
Yeah.
And so to be able to pass that ego back to the client and to the divine intelligence is so important, to have that vulnerability of like, I might mess up, I might make a mistake, I might miss something, but it's okay, because when we're in this space of safe containment and really agreement that the client is in control and has power and the body has empowerment, that's like really what it's about.
It is. I can share a quick story about a learning of that for me. I was in a training and I was working with the person. We work on each other when we're in training, right? So it wasn't a client, it was a fellow student, and my hand was under her sacrum. I was holding her sacrum, and that's where I felt or thought I was supposed to be, right? I mean, that's where the session was going for me, and that's what I was sensing and experiencing, all that. And we get all done, and you're going to share back and forth what happened, and she said, my neck was in so much pain, I almost couldn't stand it, and you didn't go there.
Wow.
Well, then I immediately go into, oh my
like,
God,
oh,
I
yes.
missed it. What happened? You know, and of course the teacher's there, and I'm like, how did I miss that? And he said, you didn't miss it. And I'm like, well, she's in pain.
Yeah.
And I'm on her sacrum, which is kind of connected to the neck anyway. But, you know, she's in pain and I have no awareness of it with all these perceptual skills that I supposedly have.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it was a huge learning moment because he said, you didn't miss it. The session unfolded exactly as it should have. If you were meant to have known that, you would have known it. And she didn't say anything.
Wow.
If she would have said something, it would have changed the session.
Yes.
But she didn't.
Which is powerful.
Yes. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So the session unfolded exactly how it was supposed to unfold. And had I perceived it, it would have been meant to be. But if she would have said something, what would have happened?
You would have gone
I would have gone there.
Yeah. It's truly this practice in acceptance. Like divine acceptance, like a complete commitment and acceptance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe something was processing there and she was experiencing pain from it. The session, but it was learning that these sessions are exactly as they're supposed to be and that if I'm meant to know something, I'll know it.
Well, and what does it say that she's in this excruciating pain and can't speak up?
Exactly.
Like that in itself is a piece.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do with you because you would have gone there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when he said that, well, she didn't say anything. And had she said something, the session would have changed.
Yeah.
But she didn't.
What did that tell you?
that taught me again to just trust.
Yeah.
Just trust that everything will unfold exactly how it's supposed to. And I always affirm before I work on people, when I spend that 30 minutes in the morning in my practice before I start seeing clients, I do my little meditation and sort of say my little affirmations. And one of them I say is, everything I need to know is revealed to me in a way I can understand it or interpret it. It's one of the affirmations that I say.
I love that.
And then I just trust that. I just trust that intelligence of what's happening. I'm very honored and humbled every time I get to hold someone, hold their space, hold their physical body, hold their field. It's a really, for me, it's a really humbling experience.
It's so sacred.
It is.
It's so sacred because that trust is there on some level, even if they're not fully trusting or you're uncertain. It's so sacred.
Yeah.
Even in the unconscious, what we're not saying.
Exactly.
Even more so because there's even more vulnerability there. Maybe it's the first time someone has gone where they need to go, or the first time they've ever said something out loud. And to be able to hold that and be a part of that, like, often I hear people say, "Oh, I'm so proud of you." And so I always try to say, like, you should be so proud of you.
Yes.
Like, or they'll say, "Thank you so much. You're help." And no, like, you're here doing the work. It's you. Like,
Yes.
you're the one that has chose to be here every week and say the things and do the things and, let go, release, lean into.
Yeah. I was just thinking to go back to people that come in who are skeptical. Sometimes I still have a smart mouth. And so they'll come in and say, "Well, I'm really skeptical about this. I don't understand how it works. I'm like, I'm a practitioner and I don't always understand how it works." But, and I'll say, "Well, that's okay. You can be a skeptic the whole time you feel better."
Yes.
That's fine.
Yes. Yes. You can doubt it all the way to your next adventure. Yes.
Yeah. It's funny. And some of those people are some of my greatest they refer other people. And they'll say to me, later into it, whatever's healed, they're feeling better, the pain's gone, whatever's happening. Cindy, when I came in here, I was a real skeptic. I'm like, "Yes, I know. And I said you could feel better the whole time you were skeptical." But we're working below all of that, or above it, however you want to put it. We're working in a space, that space of true health, that space that's underlying, no matter what the diagnosis is, no matter what disease is going on, no matter what's going on in life, we're dropping, I'll use the word below because I don't have another word. Well, we drop into a different space below all of that. Doesn't matter what you're thinking on the table or how skeptical you are or whether you believe in what I do or not. We're working at a level that's completely different than all of that.
Yes.
So that it's fine.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I'll tell people who are doing MDMA or about to do MDMA because they're very skeptical, and parts will come out who maybe aren't fully trusting or angry at having to heal or integrate. There's parts that aren't ready, and so the client will come in and say, "Well, I'm really nervous and I'm not fully ready. And like, how am I going to let go?" And it's like, you have no control in that process. Like, if a part of you is ready, you're going to take the medicine. And if you choose to drop into the medicine, miracles are going to happen,
Yeah.
But it is that state of you are so deeply in the unconscious of brain and body and nervous system that there's no controlling it. There's no manipulating it. It's just being present to it and witnessing it and maybe meeting yourself differently than how you've been able to meet yourself.
That's got to be, I've never done that. It's got to be a crazy experience.
It is very crazy. It is very crazy, and it is really this art of what you're saying as far as acceptance and compassion from a semi-controlling perfectionist, recovering perfectionist. I can remember one of the first times I was so nervous and just even that idea of letting go was so threatening to my system because I was so controlled, and I had chosen to go through with it. But how I rationalized it was, well, if I die, it's going to be on my terms.
Wow.
Like I had to wrap my head around what happens when I let go, and what happens when the unconscious becomes conscious, and what if that's so threatening, because before the medicine, it was so threatening. It was so
Right.
scary. And so being able to let go and really go into the unconscious places and go back to the places I needed to go back, some of the best wisdom I ever got was you've already survived it. Of course you're going to get through it again. And so even in this idea of allowing someone else to co-regulate your nervous system, trusting another individual to work alongside you in those very vulnerable spaces and places is a huge honor.
Yeah.
And so powerful, even in maybe how you hold yourself. And I think we can give a lot of power to providers, and that's the wrong move.
Yeah.
Because it's really about you and your power.
Yes.
And, any provider who recognizes I am just here to hold and empower you to heal is a golden one.
Yeah. People are doing their own healing. It's amazing work. Should we talk for a minute about the MAP method too?
Yes. So what is the MAP method?
Yeah, so it's a method based in neuroplasticity, and so you probably know this even better than I do, that the brain can rewire or change the pathway that's already there. We used to think that the brain had to develop a completely new pathway to bypass the trauma pathway, let's say, or whatever's there. And what they now know with neuroplasticity is that the brain can change, right? It can heal. And this is a method where, and the reason I bring it up in this light of healing and being in my practice is sometimes without knowing it in their conscious mind, people have a lot of resistance to healing because it's new.
Yes.
Right? Or it's not the state that is, the unconscious mind is always trying to keep us safe and alive. That's what it's there for, right? The unconscious mind only works in memory and experience. And so even though it sucks for you, the unconscious mind also doesn't have any discernment.
Yes.
It doesn't know right, wrong, good, bad, anything. So if you're alive and safe, even though you might be in chronic pain or whatever it is that's going on, the unconscious mind is happy with that because you're still safe and alive and it's experienced before it's a known.
Yes.
So it's working with what's the resistance to your healing. What is the belief? What is the emotion? What is the wound from childhood that's there that's keeping you here? And in fact, that's just the unconscious mind, but there's usually a belief around that. We have charts of beliefs and emotions and events and mindset barriers and all these things that we use muscle checking to test what it is or what it wants to bring up. And you can actually neutralize or rewire, if you will, whatever this resistance is to health and healing that people don't even know is there.
Yes.
Or you can work with clearing past traumas, self-sabotaging behaviors, things like that. And so that I can do. I do that mostly on Zoom. I do it sometimes in my office, but it's mostly a Zoom call. And we don't need to be in physical presence. It's really powerful work.
Yeah.
And it really, you just get to relax and observe, basically, because I'm going to use muscle checking. And there's some things I'll ask, or we at least need a place to start. What do you want to work on? Or, I have people that the reason I brought that into my practice and certified in that a couple of years ago is because I would have some people in my practice that I could see for a really long time that just couldn't get better.
Yes.
And I'm like, why is that?
Yeah.
And it seemed to me that their illness or dis-ease or pain becomes part of the identity.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so how do we get past that and what's stopping from getting past that. MAP Method 2 is also really good for grief and memories that are still triggering, things that are still triggering to you.
Yeah.
And then in light of like moving forward and healing, in the conscious mind, they're not going to understand why they're not healing. They're not going to understand there's a part of them or a part of the unconscious, an old story that's there that's actually keeping them stuck where they are.
Yeah.
And so we use the MAP method to neutralize that and change behaviors and even ancestral things.
Yes.
Yeah, things we come in with. They in Chinese medicine, I mean, I think the general thought is that at the spark of conception, we bring in things in our DNA from 7 generations back.
Yes, and 7 generations forward.
Yes.
Yeah, that intergenerational trauma.
Yeah, and they've done, but in Chinese medicine, I think they go back 13 generations, but it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, we bring in history with us at the moment of conception. And what is that?
Yes.
We could be dealing with things in our life that's not even ours.
Yes. There's a wonderful book by Mark Woolen. It's called It Didn't Start With You. And he speaks to that.
Yeah.
And intergenerational trauma is wild when we look at the patterning that happens. When you talk about MAP method, it makes me think of EMDR and blocking beliefs.
Yes.
Like those beliefs that we can do all the healing, but if we still hold that belief of ourselves or how we show up in the world, we're not going to get past that.
Yeah.
And so being able to let go of what doesn't serve you is huge.
It's huge.
Huge.
And it's interesting because my practice is such a blend. Like, I love to work on head injuries. I know that probably sounds awful, but I really like to work on head injuries. But, concussions, TBIs, things like that. So that's a real physical thing people come in for. Look, I had a concussion 2 weeks ago. I'm having headaches. I'm having trouble sleeping, the post-concussion syndrome. And I'll work with that. And they'll see me, 2 to 4 times, and they're done.
Wow.
And I've never not had good results with head traumas.
Yeah.
Ever. Or migraines. But then the other population that I see is there for way more or more, it might be showing up in the physical, but also it's more emotional based things.
Yeah. It's like the layering.
It's the layering.
Yes.
So I work with both. It's an interesting practice. Yeah.
It's fully integrated whole body healing.
I have a lot of tools.
Yes. A lot of tools.
So sessions are always different. You don't come into my office, I'll say this, and order off a menu.
No.
You come in and we'll talk and I'll decide what we're going to do, basically. There's my control piece. No, we're going to do this. No, but here's what would be best for you, because I have so many tools to use. And sometimes, it's a progression. We might start with one modality or 1 or 2. A lot of my sessions are a blend of more than one thing. And then we might, grow into another modality or another thing that now this is resolved or here, and now we're going to add this to get you to where you want to be.
Lovely. Lovely. So where can people find you?
They can find my website is cindymccall.com. It's easy, just my name. That's probably the easiest place to find me.
Yeah, and we're going to post that on the site, on socials.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I appreciate you being here and talking about what you're doing and really adding so much value to the community.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure to be here. It's been really fun.
Awesome. And you're going to be fully in Coeur d'Alene.
Eventually. Right now I still have a Sandpoint office and I also have the Coeur d'Alene office. So I'm in both places. Starting the end of April, I'll be in Sandpoint on Tuesday, Wednesday, and every other Thursday.
Okay.
And the other days I'll be in the Coeur d'Alene office.
Okay.
But it's transitioning.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. We're in our 33rd move.
We're in our 33rd move.
Yes.
And I eventually will be more in the Coeur d'Alene office, but I don't want to give up my Sandpoint office completely.
Okay.
So there'll be a day or two that I commute up there for sure.
Wonderful. Okay. So if people want to find you, they'll find you on your website.
I'm on the website.
Coeur d'Alene, maybe Sandpoint. Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.